This is the Old Gorilla Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to the Old Gorilla Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. This is John's episode number 23. Everybody's a special guest. I say it every week. Got a special guest with me again. Anna-Margarita, Queza, sister from another mister. Known you for, 15 years now or close to it?
Quite a while. I think since like 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
It's been a bit.
It's been a bit, yeah. So 12, 13 years, something like that. So you've known both the boys since they were little. So glad to have you in here finally.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I can't wait to jump into it.
Yeah, so you are, a person that I think about when I think about people who are just into everything, right? Yeah, and most of my friends are into everything.
Yeah. Kindred spirits.
Oh yeah, so martial arts and shooting and business owning and trying to be an influencer and all this kind of stuff. You just have your fingers in everything. So somewhat of like I would say serial entrepreneur. You're trying to start several businesses and do different things and kind of bucking against the system and doing your own thing rather than what is that's a weed eater. So what is that? So you're a super talented musician, all right? You play guitar, you play several different instruments, piano, you got a music production degree from Belmont, right?
That's right.
Right? Personal trainer. I think you did something in nutrition, you got some type of nutrition certification recently, right? Mm-hmm. Filipino martial arts. Jennifer told me you're working on becoming a CCL instructor, right? Concealed handgun or concealed carry. Mm-hmm. So we can dive into all that.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. We're both kindred spirits in that way, and I just like training different things. I like getting into different things. You know this. You're into a lot of different things as well, and I kind of like to think of myself as more of a multidisciplinarian, much like yourself. Like you play guitar, you write songs, you're performing, you're training all the time. Yeah. So that's I'm just trying to have some fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the spice of life, right? It's variety. Mm-hmm. You and I are kind of wired in the same way. We like to stay busy. Can't really sit very still, right? There's always got to be something going on. And always trying to think outside the box and not trying to fit into the regular box that everybody's trying to fit us into. So I think it's really important to be that way in a lot of ways. I mean, if that's not your jam, that's not your jam. Sure. But for me and you and others that I've had on the podcast and that are my friends, man, we gotta have our fingers in just a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it keeps me, it keeps me motivated. It keeps me kind of excited about life. And yeah, you're right. If it's not your jam, it's not your jam. And I think often for us, we can kind of feel a little bit ostracized. Yeah. So I think being able to be in a space like this that's very welcoming, that's safe, where we can get to talk about all the things that we're passionate about. I'm excited about this particular podcast and episode.
Yeah, awesome. Well, tell me a little bit. I know that you've been into personal training over the last several years. Mm-hmm. And is it functional rehab? Is that what they call that as well? The one part that you work on?
Yeah, I like to do a lot of functional movement and movement quality and corrective strategies. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people who are kind of lacking in mobility or if they've been injured for quite some time, I like to think of it as restorative strength.
Restorative strength. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. So that's something that I kind of started to kind of hone in on in the last year or so. But I do a lot of kettlebells and a mixed modality of things, so like Indian club swinging. Yeah. That's been really great for people with shoulder issues.
So Indian club swing, what is that? Is that like the mace?
It's kind of like, they look like juggling pins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they look like that. This is particularly the British style. Okay. It was fun because, obviously they're called Indian clubs. Yeah. So if you go back to Persia, these big, they were called mudger, and so they're these big old, wooden things that they're all the weight is kind of like the mace bell. Yeah. But it kind of like angles off to the tip. Yeah. And so you see these Indian wrestlers and they're swinging these mudger, and it's just they're swinging it behind their back, and
I've seen this. Yeah. And they can be really big too,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have that, you have the gata, then you get the Indian clubs they were brought over to Britain, obviously by the British. So they're a little bit lighter. 1 to 2 pounds, and that's kind of where I like to start my clients with when it comes to shoulder rehab and especially posture correction. A lot of the times they've got a lot of imbalances in their body, and so one way to do that is by just having them swing some clubs. And so they're able to correct their posture because they're standing up straight because they don't want to get hit in the face by their clothes.
Sure.
So that's one way. I like to think of it as like jump rope for the upper body.
Gotcha. So this makes me think, because I have tight shoulders, right? And I do a lot of jiu-jitsu, I work out a lot and all that kind of stuff. And when somebody gets me like in a shoulder lock, I'm tapping real fast because my shoulders are so tight. So would that be something that I could use to open up my shoulders a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because I just started grappling. I do catch wrestling. And it's funny because some of the guys will kind of they'll try to put me in a shoulder lock, and they're waiting for me to tap.
Yeah.
Because I can kind of go a little bit far, but Indian clubs really help with that. So that might be something to look into.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure, because that's. So what weight would you recommend me getting into with that?
I would start with 1 pound.
1 pound.
Yeah,
okay.
Because you're thinking again like jump rope for the upper body. You're thinking about coordination, stability, balance. I would start with a lower weight before you start to dive into 2 pound and 3 pound and the mace bell.
Gotcha. So you were with a client today, so you do home visits as well, you said?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize you were doing home visits. I know you were doing some training within your home, your garage. So when you have a client reach out, how do you gauge whether or not they're gonna, come to your house and do the training, or if you're gonna go to their house? What does that look like?
Good question. Some of my clients, especially the older ones, typically they'll even ask me if I do home visits. I think they like the security and safety of their home. If they have their own equipment, I kind of work with them in that regard.
Okay.
I'm currently renovating my garage into a home studio. So right now, I have some existing clients that come train with me because they've been training with me for a while, and they're able to move a little bit more than some of my other clients. And so the ones I feel comfortable where they can be in that space, they'll train at home with me. Otherwise, I'm happy to visit homes and train them in their home.
Yeah, so typically they have their own equipment, so you're not hauling around, a bunch of kettlebells and all that kind of stuff.
I'm still kind of hauling a lot of equipment. I have a big hockey bag that I'm pretty sure I fit into it. Yeah. I've done it before. And gosh, when that thing's packed out, I mean, it's really heavy. But it's funny, I'm looking into a baseball bag that's got some wheels.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I'm still carrying kettlebells. I've got adjustable kettlebells that are really great, so you can choose the weight on them, which is super helpful for diving into different exercises, but I don't have to carry all these single bells with me.
Yeah, gotcha. So when you do these, this consulting, I guess you would call it, are you consulting on only the fitness or nutrition, or is it something together, or do you mix and match, or what does that look like?
I generally don't do a whole lot of nutritional consulting. Most of it is movement, physical training, and self-protection. The nutrition side, I mean, we can definitely have conversations about it, but it's not. I'm not as passionate about it as the fitness side of things. Just because everyone has. First of all, talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
But also, there's a ton of diets out there, and it's just hard to I'm gonna need a full history of what you've been into before I can really make some recommendations. But if you are looking for fat loss and weight loss, we can talk about just general habits that will probably help you along with your physical training.
Gotcha. And how long are these sessions that you're doing? Are they an hour, 2 hours? What does it look like?
Yeah, they're generally about 45 minutes to 60 minutes.
Okay.
I try to keep it short and sweet, and typically I'm seeing clients 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And we're mostly doing full body training. Sometimes we do splits, but for the most part, my clients are 30 or older, and I think it's we're all busybodies, and we just don't have time to be grinding it out every day. Yeah,
exactly. And so, are these mostly like people who are in rehab because they've had a surgery or something, or is this like how are you getting these clients?
A lot of it's word of mouth. Most of them are having a lot of mobility issues, and some of them are, coming out of surgery. But some of them have injuries that are, decades old, and they just haven't figured out how to kind of break through those adhesions.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I focus on is soft tissue mobilization.
Gotcha.
Through self-myofascial release.
Okay.
So I do a lot of that to kind of get them started. We do some stretching, but most of it is really like loaded mobility. So you're just adding a kettlebell to something to kind of challenge your system just a little bit.
Sure.
But the strength portion kind of allows them to see what the weak links are.
Sure.
So it kind of exposes a lot more.
Okay, so you just you're making me think now, right? So old guerrilla jiu-jitsu, right? It is mostly aimed towards, people my age, you're approaching my age. You're not quite there, but I'm not going to call you an old lady or anything like that on the recording. But, right, so as people, more mature adults, right, I would say. Typically, a lot of this is focused towards, mid-30s and up, us dads that are doing jiu-jitsu and working out and doing all this stuff, and a lot of us get injured, right? Doing this stuff. We're not as flexible and athletic as we used to be, right? John Asher, if you're listening to me, I'm more athletic than you. But there's like things that we need to do. We got to stretch. We've got to work out. One of the things that I've implemented in the last couple of years is cold therapy, right? So I have a cold plunge in my garage that I built, and so all these things together work together to help us to be functional and to heal and to be able to move the way we need to move and to recover faster. And so you said myofascial release. So that ding ding, right? That's one of the things that I've had to do over the years. Whenever I get injuries, they go in and they find these adhesions, which is another word that you used. Tell me about that, because I had no idea you were doing that, and I need that. So and my friends need that. So tell me about that, and what does this look like in your scope of what you're doing?
Yeah, and I love that old guerrilla jiu-jitsu is focused on a different demographic. But self-myofascial release, I typically start with a postural assessment and gait. So the way that someone walks tells me a lot about where their imbalances are in the musculoskeletal system. So sometimes, your pain might be in the foot, but it's being referred by your shoulder. So we have all this connective tissue through our body, and you're probably aware of this, being, the man that you are and knowing everything. But the soft tissue is really just this connective web. If you think about uncooked chicken. And you see the white membrane underneath the skin. So that's a lot like what we have in our bodies. And so oftentimes we keep thinking about, we have a muscle imbalance, when really it might be a soft tissue problem.
Gotcha.
And so let's say you've got some adhesions and tightness in your left calf. And so you've got that connective tissue, and it's getting tightened up, and so all of a sudden it's pulling, let's say it's on the left side, all of a sudden it's pulling your right shoulder towards the calf, because you've got these spiral lines within your connective tissue.
So see, I didn't know this stuff. All right,
so
carry on.
So I typically have people start with the self-myofascial release technique, and there's three different types. There's a pin and hold, which is more of the corrective type. So you kind of just place, let's say, a tennis ball on your calf, and you're doing body breathing or diaphragmatic breathing for up to 10 breaths, right? Once you do that, you move on to a different spot. So you're kind of restoring blood flow and kind of rejuvenating that area. So that you can start to stretch it out and then start to add some load later on. But that way you're actually, hopefully, addressing the root cause instead of the symptom where the pain is. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So say for instance, I have this pain that I've had in my rhomboid on my right side, like periscapular, and I can feel there's like a knot there, and I've been told that there's a trigger point. This has come up there, and I've heard that's a common trigger point for guys my age that are doing crazy stuff like jiu-jitsu and lifting weights and stuff. But here's what I've been thinking over the last, this has been going on for 2 years. And I have this muscle hook thing that I'll get in there and I'll just dig it out, and it hurts so good, right? Because once I get done with it, then everything feels loose. But every now and then I'll be driving down the road and I'll feel it start tightening up, so I can reach back there with my hand and I can feel that knot and I can start rubbing it out, but I feel like a crunchiness under the surface of my skin. It's not on the muscle, it's underneath. So is that adhesion? What is that?
Yeah, it's a trigger point, like you said. It could be an adhesion. It could be from an old injury. Have you had a shoulder injury in the past?
I'm sure I have.
Yeah, for sure. But a lot of us hold tension in our shoulders, right? And so it could be, it could be from an imbalance in your hips, but also I think that you're a good candidate for Indian clubs when it comes to your shoulders, especially in the rhomboid area. I would start with the self-myofascial release technique, a pin and hold technique, and then you can move on to shearing, which is kind of like a side to side. You're sliding the ligament, and then you follow up with some Indian clubs.
Okay.
You'll probably feel a whole lot better, after 10 minutes.
Where can I get some Indian clubs?
On Amazon, I got an affiliate link.
Okay. So, hey, we'll link the affiliate link too in this podcast when I post it on social media, because I mean this is stuff that the guys I train with, we talk about this stuff all the time. It's like, oh, I've got this pain here, I've got that pain there. What about this? What about that? Yeah. And people will miss for months because they're trying to quote unquote recover from whatever this is. And I've seen guys, they get injured, they take a couple weeks off, they come back, they think they're better, they re-injure themselves, and they're out for a year because they didn't take care of themselves and get the right treatment, or do the right things to recover, and then they blow out a knee, or they mess up their hip, or they blow out a disc in their back or something like that because they're still trying to roll even though they're stiff, and they're just trying to muscle through it, and that's never the right thing to do. And that's one of the things that I've tried to do over the years, and I think I'm better than most of trying to recover and using different modalities to recover. But I think it's really important for these guys and these girls to know that, hey, if you get hurt, go find somebody that knows what they're doing and help you recover. Because if you try to do it on your own and you don't know what you're doing, you could hurt yourself, number one. Number two, maybe completely the wrong thing that you need to be doing. Like a lot of people put heat on things that don't need heat, or put cold on things that don't need cold. That's just an example. But gosh, hey, reach out to Anna, right? She may know. You take care of jiu-jitsu people?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's my passion is martial arts, and so that's honestly how I kind of got into this whole thing. Yeah. Was training martial arts, and people would come in with all these kinds of injuries. I'm like, man, how can we help them? Yeah. And and it's like you said, a lot of times we don't know what we're doing, and how can you know? Yeah. There's so much that's been lost over time. And so now it's all about looking good or repping things out and putting a whole lot of tension in our body versus we need to be able to rebalance things out. And so we need to do something that's restorative, something like Indian clubs. Yeah. Or like a loaded mobility with kettlebells. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you got a good segue going there. So martial arts, right? So you're doing a type of martial arts that I've never really looked into. I ought to. I've got it in my blood, right? It's Filipino martial arts. I looked up the place that you train. It's called PTK, which is, I cannot remember what that stands for, but Kali is part of it, right? Let's just talk about that. So how did you get into Filipino martial arts? And let's start from there. Gosh, it's 6.5 years that I've been training PTK. Okay. So PTK stands for Pikiti Tersha Kali. I call it Pikiti or PTK for short, just because there's different types of Kali. Sure. So there's Sayak Kali, there's Atienza Kali. I'm not familiar with those. But Pikiti Tersha Kali is from the Visayas region, and it translates to close quarters combat. And Kalis is the blade, so it's blade fighting in close quarters. Gotcha. So you're thinking about close quarters, Tersha is thirds, so you think about the triangle. So a lot of martial arts will turn to PTK primarily for its footwork system. Okay. If you're thinking about combat or any type of fighting, any type of real good fighting, you're seeing people strike and move. So you're shooting and moving, you're firing and maneuvering, and so that's what we do is we're not standing still, unless we're trying to build mechanics. Gotcha. But we're always, from the first day, you're training footwork. Footwork, okay. So I got into it. I wanted to.
So is this a striking-based martial art?
It's a striking-based martial art. Okay. Yes.
And this is it's weapons-based as well, right?
Yes, it's a blade combat.
I was doing a little bit of homework on this.
There you go.
I've heard about it, right? And we've talked about it briefly from time to time, just sitting around the table, but I didn't realize that it was primarily a weapons-based martial arts from the Philippines. And I was watching some videos on it. It blows my mind. Yeah. So I want you to talk about what you're about to say, and then we can get into some of that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started training. I was really looking for something. First of all, martial arts never crossed my mind ever as a child. And I don't know if this was the same for you, but it kind of found me. Yeah. I was looking to protect myself, and I was traveling alone a lot, and I had met this guy. I guess he was based in Denton, and he was consulting for some of the local law enforcement. And I met him at this Filipino New Year's Gala. Yeah. And he said that he trains and teaches something called Kali. And so I looked it up and just saw videos of him swinging around a blade, and I was like, man, that looks kind of cool. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I mean, how close would someone get to me if I just had a little bit of skill and could swing a blade?
Yeah.
But then, gosh, my world just kind of opened up. It was just like a whole Pandora's box when I found the specific system that I train in.
Yeah.
So this one is a PTK SMF, which is under the guidance of Tuhan Tim Wade. The system was passed down to him from Grand Tuhan Leo Tigahe. And Leo Tigahe is the sole heir of the system from his grandfather.
Okay.
So it's a familial system, and
it's kind of like jiu-jitsu, from the Gracies and the Machados.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Tuhan Tim lived with Leo Tigahe for maybe 5 years, and then they were consulting. They came over to the States. They were also consulting for the Philippine Marine Corps.
Okay.
So the Philippine Marine Corps, Tuhan Tim and Leo Tigahe were responsible for actually introducing their close quarters fighting.
Okay.
Because you have the firearms and then you have empty hands, but then you have to bridge the gap.
Gotcha.
So that's sort of where the edge weapons part comes in.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so what I was looking at, what's the guy from Forge and Fire?
Doug Markita.
Doug Markita, yes.
Uh-huh.
So he's kind of what has informed me on Filipino martial arts, right? Because I watched Forge and Fire, love that show, especially during like COVID. I was watching it all the time. So he was talking about how there's like different forms, or I guess different levels of Filipino martial arts. It starts off with like sticks, right? And those are like escrimas, or what are they called?
Yeah, a lot of the stick fighting that you'll see a lot in arnis and eskrima.
Arnis, okay, that's
And for me with PTK, it's strictly blade fighting. So
okay.
you'll see us wielding a rattan stick, but it's primarily just a training aid,
okay.
so that we're not cutting each other up.
Yeah.
But we do treat it as the sword.
Gotcha.
So when people see videos of us sparring, a lot of the times from the outside it can look like we're not doing anything.
Sure.
But we're applying specific strategies and tactics so that we actually don't get hit in the process. Because if we get hit with a stick, we're actually getting slashed. Yeah.
Okay. So the stick is representing like a blade.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I see. I had no idea.
Yeah, and rattan's just it's the best way to go.
Okay.
It's such a great training aid, and it's also.
Does it make a little snap whenever you hit people with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It hurts. It'll teach you real quick.
Yeah.
Once you get your hand cut in the process, man.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah. So is an eskrima and a rattan, is that basically the same thing? Arnis, is that all the same?
Yeah, eskrima and arnis are more of the Spanish derivatives.
Okay.
I think it's seen more as a sport.
Okay.
Especially in the Philippines, they've got a lot of tournaments. I know that with PTK, the way that it's taught by Tuhan Tim is that this is real fighting, real blade fighting. And we're talking about multiple opponents.
Okay.
So if you're thinking about a fight on the street and trying to protect yourself, it has to be effective against multiple opponents, because you never know
Sure.
when you've got like 2 or 3 people coming up on you.
Yeah, exactly. That's so interesting, because I can just imagine, what that would look like if you had the sticks or the whatever the blades, and you're coming at somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be horrifying, but. The weapon that I see you carry, right? I know that you carry is the karambit, right? Is that how you say that? Karambit?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like an eagle talon almost.
Yes.
It's got a hook on it. So let's talk about that, how that fits into Filipino martial arts. Obviously with PTK, that's what your main focus is with the karambit and that type of blade, and using that to defend yourself. So let's talk about that some.
Yeah, so I carry, the saying is, 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Okay.
So, we carry 2 blades.
Oh, so you have 2 blades on you, like all the time?
Almost all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
One of them is kind of like a karambit. It's not technically a karambit, but you can flip it over. It's got like the hook, like you said.
Yeah.
But you can flip it over and treat it like a karambit.
Gotcha.
It's a Colonel blade,
Yeah.
as the brand.
Yeah.
And that thing's pretty tough.
Yeah. If I hate to put you on the spot, do you have one with you that you can show?
I have one, yes.
Look at that.
This is Spyderco Delica 4. I use it as my EDC.
Yeah.
I just cut boxes open with it.
Yeah.
This thing I've had since 2018.
Okay.
I added a fang to it just for fast deployment.
Yeah. Okay.
From my pocket. So
Yeah.
I can't do it right now because I'm seated.
Yeah. Can I see that? So this is Spyderco. But this is not is this what you would use if you were practicing Filipino? Like somebody came up on you, right?
Yeah.
Could you use this blade?
Absolutely.
To defend yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, you have the proper strategies and tactics and the proper range and timing, which is often missing from a lot of striking martial arts.
Yeah.
You'll be able to finish it pretty quickly.
Gotcha. So I was looking at some videos and stuff last night and this morning. The one that I see most commonly associated with Filipino martial arts is the one that has the little loop in the end of it, the finger loop.
Yes.
Is that something that you use?
Yeah, so I have one. It does have a finger loop. Are you talking about the karambit still?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really, it's fun. It's an exotic blade.
Yeah.
It's considered an exotic blade, but a lot of it is for like ripping and tearing of the skin instead of like the stab.
Horrified.
Yes. I know I'm using these words and.
No, this is good because here. Well, I'll get into a little bit more with you because I've had several guests on talking about ladies in self-defense, right? And I'm a real big proponent of women learning how to shoot. Learning how to defend themselves through whether it's grappling or some kind of martial art. So this fits right in there. So a lot of people are scared to carry a gun, right? But I think most people would be okay with carrying a knife. And so, I love this. Ripping and tearing, and you've got like a hook blade that looks like an eagle claw. Let's talk. That's like, not only is it intimidating, but it's very effective once you learn how to use it. So yeah, let's talk about that too, and how that fits into like the self-defense side of things.
Sure. Just to go off of what you mentioned about women protecting themselves, and a lot of times women are kind of fearful to carry a handgun, and that's fine, but as you said, but they might be more apt to carry a knife.
Yeah.
Or even just a steel pen.
Yeah.
Or something around you that you can use.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about this system is it's easily transferable. So you're learning how to make diagonal strikes across the center line to be able to protect your center line, and you're able to target the hand. You've got a little bit of skill. Once you pull that blade out and you start swinging it, or even just a steel pen, because non-permissive environments, right? We have this. Once you're able to start swinging it, people will look at you and say, I'm not getting near this person.
No, there's no way. If you pull out a knife, it didn't matter what type of knife, and that's one thing that I've learned too over the years with self-defense is a knife. A person wielding a knife is probably more dangerous than someone with a gun because they can close that distance really quickly when they have a knife, and you'll be cut and bleeding and not even know it.
Yeah.
And you could die from that really easily.
Absolutely.
A gun's dangerous, don't get me wrong, but a knife is potentially more dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, like what's missing from a lot of training methodologies is if you're not training proper range and proper timing, that's what's awesome about training the rattan stick, the long weapon, is because it gives you that visual sensitivity and proprioception. Where are you in space in relation to your opponent and in your environment? Am I in range to actually target the hand while my torso is also being safe so that my opponent can't get me? Yeah. So we talk about we don't just fight the fight, we fight the safe fight. Yeah. So how do we get out of this without cuts? So that's sort of the training objective. Yeah. People say, oh, you'll get cut. You might as well just, embrace that. And that might be the case, but that's not the training objective. Yeah. Is you have to understand how to master your body, and you have to understand how to master a system that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to, I had Jennifer on the podcast several months ago, and she was talking about how, she's very apprehensive to start training jiu-jitsu or anything like that, and she doesn't know what she would do or how she would react if somebody did grab her, right? She was laughing about it like it was kind of funny, but like, would I just like give up, and just be done with it and just hope I die? You know what I mean? It's sad because I think there's a lot of people that think that way. But I think when that fight or flight kicks in, right, I think most people, when they get down to it, they're going to try to fight, right? And you need to be equipped and understand that, hey, I have different options. I know some jiu-jitsu. I know how to strike. I have a knife, or I can pick up this stick and beat the crap out of somebody if I needed to. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it's really important to know that, if you do get cut, right, if you're fighting with a knife, and say you get cut, you're bleeding, but you're still in the fight. Right. Right. You're not going to just stop because you get cut. Right. But if you're trained properly, like you're saying with PTK, you learn how to avoid getting cut. Right. You learn how to protect your organs and the vital parts of your body that are gonna that could stop you from fighting. Yeah. Yeah. It's like you've been training this for years, man. Well, I kind of get the idea of it, but I've
I mean, I've never thought about fighting someone with a knife, right?
Sure.
Until you started training with it, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting,
Yeah.
right? And so tell me more about PTK, self-defense. Do you do any training with ladies who are wanting to learn some self-defense type stuff? Is that part of what you do?
Absolutely. That's actually how I kind of got started. I primarily train women, and again, women over 30. A lot of them don't have any type of training or background. Mm-hmm. And so when they come in, it's kind of an intimidating space to be in, right, already. And so sometimes they're looking specifically for a woman to train with. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, these women have been in awful situations, and for them to have the courage to come in and want to train. And also, we use that as a healing modality for them to get stronger, for them to get trained, for them to get skilled. And so I think it's so amazing to me to see women feel so empowered after their first lesson, mm-hmm. when they actually learn how to wield a knife properly.
Just after one lesson?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
They've got a new walk.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see and witness with whether that's a knife, but then they also know how to properly use that, whether that's a pen or even the edge of their cell phone. Anything that's an impact weapon.
Gotcha.
So anything that's an impact weapon, you can transfer from the blade to the impact weapon.
Okay, so any impact weapon. So you pick up a stapler off your desk at work.
Yeah.
You can use that after the training that you give in your self-defense class.
Yeah, they'll learn it pretty quickly, especially if you're learning the diagonal strikes across the center line. I typically have them start with that, and along with proper footwork by getting offline, off of the 45-degree line, and then also learning how to properly close that distance, as you mentioned a little bit earlier. Yeah. Is to properly close that distance, because we're not going to the opponent or to the target, right? We're going through it.
Sure.
So you better believe they're ready to bulldoze anybody that's coming their way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some common things that people have on their person that they can use for a weapon? Now my brain is I'm thinking cell phone. I've thought about a cell phone before, mm-hmm. right? Obviously. What else do they have?
A pen, and it should be a steel pen. So Zebra is a good brand. The Parker Jogger.
Like the steel barreled pens that you get. I've
and
seen
you can get a tactical pen, but obviously it looks tactical. Okay. And so if you're going through an airport, it's a lot more obvious. So I like to carry a steel pen, and you know, sometimes I'll just carry it here on my collar. Okay. The edge of a cell phone. So we don't use the flat of the cell phone. We'll use the edge and we'll strike it across the eyes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And so all of this stuff we can also transfer to empty hands, because when you go empty hands, you know, the hand becomes the hand blade. Yeah. So you open up your hands and you've got that whole bone exposed from your pinky tip all the way to the elbow. Yeah. And some people got some really sharp elbows.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's something my dad taught me too whenever I was coming up. I never really had any fights, you know, per se. But he said that if you're going to strike somebody, don't strike them with a closed fist, strike them with an open palm and use the heel of your palm to land that punch. He said you'll be much more effective. It's stronger. You're not going to break your hand. Yep. And so, I mean, when you said that, it made me think of something my dad taught me years ago.
He's smart, because that's also what I teach is primarily, when they first start at least, is open hand striking. Because again, like you said, if you're punching some hard, hard bones and you're breaking your hand, you've got one good hand left. Yeah. So we want to keep our hands and stay in the fight. Sure. And quickly get out.
Yeah, absolutely. So cell phone, steel barrel pen. Mm-hmm. What else can you think of? I see something sitting on the desk right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've got hot coffee, honestly, you can just do a jab to the eyes and kind of blind them with some hot coffee. And you've got a water bottle, you can strike that across the eyes.
What soccer mom doesn't have a gigantic Stanley? Right? Yep. I mean, look at it. I mean, I carry this big old water bottle, and it's got 32 ounces of water in it most of the time, unless I've been drinking a lot. Mm-hmm. It's got some heft to it. Probably weighs 2 or 3 pounds. Not huge. But you get hit in the head with this, or there's somebody, you grab by that's the primary reason I have this little loop on it is so I can use it for a weapon. Right. I don't really advertise that, but now that everybody's watching,
Sure.
we got this water bottle, right? You got your hydro flask. Yeah. Jennifer has like 17 different colors of Stanley cups.
She's just got a collection going.
Yeah, she's got a collection going. So, I mean, if you whack somebody with a stainless steel Stanley cup, right, that has ice and hot coffee in it, that's a weapon. And I don't think most women are thinking that when they're carrying the Stanley cup. Maybe Stanley should change their branding and say this is not only for your drinks, this is also a weapon to protect yourselves, because we're living in a crazy time, right?
Absolutely.
There's people getting abducted, there's people getting molested, there's people getting caught and dragged off and they disappear and a picture ends up in Walmart, and it's horrifying. Just down the road at one of the malls that you and I have frequented over the years, it's known as a hub for child trafficking. So if you're a lady and you're listening to this, by all means, look around you in your car, look and see what you have as a weapon, right? Yeah. Look what you have in your purse. Your EDC, like Anna's talking about, is your everyday carry. What are you carrying every day? Every woman has pretty much a gigantic purse, a Stanley bottle, a cell phone. You can throw you got your keys, you can throw your pen in there, throw a knife, right? Get like the spider code how much is that spider code? It's not very much, right?
I think that one ran me around 90.
Yeah, not bad, $90. Yeah. And it's gonna last you forever. It's a great blade. You can also pick up a cheaper knife too. I mean, you can get all kind of knives off of Amazon, but find something that you will carry, right? To protect yourself, because you have to protect yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you advocate for that, because a lot of times women just don't realize that they've got something that they can use in a protective scenario.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like a lot of them are carrying big purses. I don't.
Yeah.
I've got a little fanny pack, but you can swing that purse just on the number 1 and 2, downward diagonal across the face. Yeah. You'll be able to get out of a situation pretty quickly.
Absolutely. So when is your next class that you're teaching on self-defense using blades or whatever?
I don't have one lined up right now. I'm thinking about doing a fall course, like a short course, and it would be 6 to 8 sessions with a small group of women, maybe up to 6 people. Yeah. And we'll go through. If you've never trained in your life, this would be for you.
Sure.
So we would talk about everything from long weapons to short weapons to impact weapons to empty hands, and even some grappling scenarios. Okay. Because you might find yourself on the ground.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you need to get yourself off pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you teach that here in town, or do you have a school somewhere that you teach that, or is that in your garage? What do you do?
Yeah, sometimes I teach at a local shooting range. Okay. So the last one I did was at Defender Shooting Outdoors.
Okay, so is that the one over in Benbrook, or is this the one down off of like West 7th area?
Yes, it's that one. It's the one off of University and Shots Avenue.
Yeah.
Shots.
Yeah. It's very fitting for Defender Outdoors.
Yeah. And then I also, I'm hoping to start to offer some courses in my home studio.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll have to show you whenever I get done. I upgraded my home gym, so it's air conditioned now. So if you need a spot, this air conditioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just added a mini split to our garage, so.
Oh yeah, I installed it myself. I did a mini split as well.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it works out.
It makes a huge difference.
Huge difference.
I want to be in there now.
Yeah, exactly. It's 73 degrees, so it just makes it easy to go out there when it's 105 outside.
So side note, I did cold plunge for the first time.
Oh yeah?
When I was in Durango last week.
Okay.
So 45 degrees.
Okay, I had mine set at 49.
Yeah, so my friend had mentioned, she asked me, do you want to try it? And I was like, sure. She gave me all the tips on like how to breathe. Yeah.
Breathing is the biggest thing. People don't realize that.
Well, it's all mental, right? Yeah. You see people going in there and they start to hyperventilate and you've already kind of psyched yourself out. Yeah. When I got in there the first time, I think it was like 2:15, she said, and then I did it a second time, and that time was 5:30.
Okay, nice.
So it was, it's painful. Yeah. But it's a fun experience.
Yeah, that whenever you first get into that cold water, right? There's a thing called the mammalian gasp reflex, right? And so everybody does it, but you have to train yourself first to know that it's going to happen. Just being aware that that's going to happen is really good. So what happens when you get into cold water, whether you turn on a cold shower, or if you get into a cold pool, or you get into a 36-degree cold plunge, or fall in a lake, right? Your body, the first reaction is sucking that air in. So that's why so many people drown when they jump into cold water, is because when they go under, they take a big deep breath, fills their lungs with water, and then they die, right?
I see.
So recognizing that that's going to happen is one of the keys before you get into a cold plunge, right? So you enter in, you stop before you go all the way in, right? Yeah. Take some deep breaths, calm down, collect yourself, because it's a panic-inducing situation. Right. If you've never done it before, it'll freak you out. Yeah. Like Jennifer started making some kind of noise that I've never heard her make before. She's like, and I was like, what in the world is happening? And so I was having to calm her down. I was like, breathe, right? And then she was able to collect herself, right? Because you're putting your body into this stressful situation that it's not expecting, right? We mostly like to be comfortable. Right. And this is super uncomfortable. I think cold water may be one of the most uncomfortable things that you can do to yourself. But once you can get that breathing under control, you can get in the water, your body starts calming down, you start getting the dopamine and the epinephrine and norepinephrine, and it gets a lot better. But yeah, I can talk about cold plunging. Awesome. I built a cold plunge because I'm crazy, and all my friends, I can't get anybody to do it.
Oh, that's funny.
I do it. I have a couple people that have tried it, but most people are like, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's so shocking.
Literally,
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. But the biggest thing that I've noticed, and I'm not going to talk about this very long because I feel like I've already gone off the record here, but recovery, right? And that's what we start off talking about is recovery, right? My recovery after I get an injury, if I cold plunge every day, is probably 50%. Like instead of having a 10-day recovery, maybe I have 5 days of recovery. And sometimes it's even shorter than that because that soreness, your body is able to recruit these repair cells to that area quicker. I don't remember the mechanism of action, but it does. Yeah. And so you can get back on the mat or start training sooner if you use cold plunge as a modality to recover. So anyway, that's
awesome.
That's my my little speech.
Total advocate for cold plunge.
Cold plunge.
Yeah.
So absolutely. We went from stabbing people to cold plunging. So you're trying to get something together this fall. For ladies, so is ladies and men or just ladies?
Primarily ladies.
Ladies. Okay, gotcha. And
men are invited.
So let me know before you do that, and we could do another podcast or something and advertise it. Yeah. And just put it out there. I mean, I'm trying to grow this, so I think it's super important for people to understand that there are options out there other than jiu-jitsu and karate and the main things that you hear about, shooting, to help secure themselves and be protected.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah, and gosh, what a wonderful thing for to have your advocacy and supporting women. I mean, that's a huge thing. I think a lot of times with women, we don't feel that support, and we don't feel like there's a safe space to be able to talk about this. Yeah. So again, I really appreciate you for providing this conversation because it needs to happen. I think it needs to continue to happen. Oh,
it's got to continue to happen. I didn't intend for this to be what we talked about on the podcast today. I thought we were going to talk about Filipino martial arts and stabbing people. I mean,
we can talk about Kung Fu too.
Yeah, do you do Kung Fu as well?
I do.
What? Yeah. All right, so we'll switch gears. All right, so Kung Fu, Bruce Lee, right? Yeah. So tell me so you're PTK and now you're learning Kung Fu along with that.
Yes.
Okay, so how did that happen, and where do you train this?
Well, what a story. Well, one of my friends, he's also my acupuncturist, he was telling me about this.
All right, so we'll talk about, get back into where we're at with Kung Fu, right? So you were doing PTK, and then you transitioned into Kung Fu. So how, like I said in the very beginning, you're into everything. You got your fingers, everything. All right, so how did that happen?
One of my good friends, he's also my acupuncturist. He had introduced me to what he's been training called, it's an internal martial art called Yichuan. And so that roughly translates to mind boxing or intention fist. So really, with each one, you have this thing called Hunwan strength. So it translates to oneness strength. And so you're able to root your body into the ground. Okay. And it's interesting. It goes everything against what we're used to with like local musculature, and the power comes from if it's a punch, it's coming from your serratus, interior. And or something's coming from your shoulder, this is all being rooted into the ground. So if someone's pushing you, all of that force is just kind of backfiring on them because it's going all the way down to the ground and just kind of redistributing.
Okay.
So
wow.
Yeah, and it's really difficult, especially if you've been training a certain way for a long time, or you've been, we're trained to pick our foot up, and this kind of dispels all of that.
Yeah.
So now we have to think of our feet like suction cups, and it's an interesting thing to be training energy work.
Okay.
But for someone like me of my size, for context, I'm 4'11", roughly like 115 pounds. So
yeah,
that's why I got into blade training, is because I needed a force multiplier or an equalizer.
Yeah.
So with this, I always felt like I was still missing something. So I needed some type of advantage. And so when my teacher was able to show me he could get out of any type of lock without any type of technique,
yeah,
I just thought, oh man, I gotta train this. This is weird. But it's fascinating to me because a lot of it is just from a standing practice. So it looks like you're standing still, but there's a lot that's happening.
Yeah.
So you think about, my teacher calls it feelizations. So it's kind of like actualizing a feeling.
Yeah.
So if you take an object like a tree and you start wrestling a tree, almost as if you're actually doing the thing, you start to experience these interesting like physiological changes in your body.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. And that's why I was just out in Durango last week to train with my Kung Fu teacher.
Okay.
And gosh, it's amazing because it's when he puts his hands on you, it's almost like you're being wrapped up in a snake.
Yeah.
It just feels like slimy, and it's not a fun feeling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't know Kung Fu kind of incorporated some of that type of stuff as well. So it's like, that would be like akin to like Qi in that type of thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're harnessing your Qi in that way. So if you think about it, and this is probably a watered down simplification, but I think it's like Tai Chi on steroids.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you just started this recently?
I started this back in 2021. And I think just more recently in the last year, I've started to take it a lot more seriously. That and catch wrestling. Catch wrestling, I try to train once a week.
Oh yeah, I forgot you were doing this. So are you learning catch wrestling at the PTK school, or is this something separate?
Yeah, at the PTK school. Yeah, my coach, he's lieutenant for Fort Worth PD, and he's been able to show me a lot of things. He's helping me work towards my first rank, which is probably one of my biggest goals with catch. Okay. I'm not sure how much further I will go with catch wrestling, but I like to delve into different things.
Yeah. So how's catch wrestling different or similar to jiu-jitsu?
So I'm not an expert in jiu-jitsu like you are, but a lot of times with catch wrestling, I know is a lot more top dominant. Yeah. And they call it catch as catch can, catch for short, because you're basically just catching everything that you can in the process. But if you think of collegiate wrestling or folk style, this came from catch. They just took all the submissions out. Okay. Which I found kind of fascinating. There's this documentary on Amazon called For the Love of Catch, and it talks about the whole history of catch wrestling. You might like it. Yeah,
I'll check it out. So catch wrestling is submission based versus like collegiate wrestling is like the type of, it's Roman Greco catch wrestling combined, right? Yeah. And then there's no submissions. So correct. Okay, so it should be very similar to jiu-jitsu in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, to me, any kind of all grappling is grappling to me. With catch, it's interesting because they use a lot of pain mechanics. Okay. So really trying to induce pain to get a reaction. Okay. And then to also stay on top. Yeah. And a lot of times, if they get their back taken, they can get out of it pretty quickly. So that's kind of what I'm learning as far as grappling goes. It's difficult. Yeah. How long have you been doing that? I started October of last year, so that would have been 2023. So okay, so about a year. That's cool. Right. So you got self-defense in PTK, so knife training, knife fighting, that type of thing. You also you're lifting weights and doing all of your personal training and all that kind of stuff. You're doing Kung Fu, right? Catch wrestling. And then
well, I guess we can finish the conversation here. So Jennifer recently went with you, my wife, to go shoot, right? And so you have, now you are like on the path to getting your concealed handgun license, or you have your license, but you're trying to get certified to be an instructor. Is that right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, certified to be a firearms instructor. That's sort of the prerequisite to becoming an LTC certified instructor. So there's sort of 2 phases to that.
Yeah.
But right now I'm working towards just becoming a firearms instructor.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how far are you away from getting that done?
A couple months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe hopefully end of September. Okay.
So are you like an apprentice or something to someone locally that's teaching you?
Yeah. I've taken some instruction from a few different people, all women and all phenomenal, like highly skilled people.
Yeah.
The most recent teacher that I've been with, she's the training director of a Defender.
Okay.
So I've been learning a lot from her, kind of training with the women there as well.
What's her name? I think I met her before.
Edwina,
yeah. She did my concealed handgun test.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the practicum part.
Yeah. She's awesome. She's a really great teacher.
Yeah, she did really good. Yeah, I did all the stuff online, and then I went down to her, and she actually did the practicum with me.
Yeah, she's cool. Really cool.
Yeah. So once you get certified, will you teach at Defender, or will you just have your own LLC that you'll be doing this through, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it'll be through just my LLC, and hopefully be able to span out in the DFW area and be able to just be at different ranges. Yeah.
I'm sure you've already thought about this because I know how your brain works, and my brain works similar to yours. So you've built this this portfolio, right, of personal training and martial arts and kung fu and all the other martial arts that you were saying. I can't remember the name of it, and now handguns, and so it sounds like you're like really immersed into the self-defense aspect of training women, right? Is that kind of what you're leaning into? It sounds like that's what.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think there's really not a lot of representation as far as female instructors, and I think a lot of times women don't train because they don't see anyone in that space. Yeah. And sometimes they're intimidated to train with a man. Yeah. Or maybe they're healing from something in the past. Yeah. So that's sort of my passion, is to hopefully start to speak to other women and help them to heal, help them to train. Yeah. In a space where, we can make mistakes and we can have really hard conversations sometimes. Sure. Or we just go at it and we just start sparring.
Yeah, exactly. That is man, that's really exciting. So do you have a name for your company that you're starting, or your LLC?
Yeah, well, I'm going through the whole rebranding right now, so my website is just a landing page, but it's called Peritia Studies, so Peritia, and it's Latin for skill. Skill, okay. So whether that's strength training, I like to think of strength as a skill. Yeah. Instead of treating it, a lot of the times we just think about putting tension on our bodies. Sure. I like to think of training as a skill set. Sure. So Peritia Studies.com. Correct. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. Really cool. Thank you. I remember you telling me about this about a year ago. I think you were just putting this together. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited, and I finally settled on a name for it because I needed something that would make sense. Yeah. And I couldn't figure it out, and here we are, Peritia Studies. Okay, so do you have social media or anything like that? So I'm currently rebranding. I've got my landing page up. I'm hopefully going to be back on social media soon, and it will be under Peritia.studies. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. All right, so be looking out for that, Peritia.studies on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Maybe, no? Maybe. LinkedIn? Yeah. Maybe? Yeah, LinkedIn, yeah. Maybe. YouTube? Yeah, YouTube for sure. Okay, so you're going to do some content on YouTube. What type of content do you think you'll put on YouTube? I think just some tidbits on some diagonal striking, how to properly grip a knife. Sure. How to properly grip an impact weapon. Sure. But also we'll go into like the personal safety side of things, so situational awareness. Yeah. All these general concepts that we don't talk about a whole lot. I think there's too much focus on disarms. Yeah. And not enough focus on not being there in the first place. Sure. So we'll talk about that as well. Like evading. Absolutely. Like getting out of the situation or recognizing the situation before it happens. Absolutely. Yeah. Situational awareness type stuff. Mm-hmm.
Very good. That's what I talk about a lot too. Especially I teach kids some jiu-jitsu once a week.
Yeah.
And it's self-defense jiu-jitsu, right? Of course we have fun. We do rolling and all that kind of stuff. But my biggest thing that I teach them, it's like, you don't have to be in the fight, right? Avoid the fight. Mm-hmm. You have the choice to leave, right? Turn around, walk away. That's the best way to win a fight.
Yeah.
And I love that you're teaching that as a part of the tactic as well, is getting out, recognizing something's about to go down, and get the heck out of there.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing a great job too teaching these kids.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Pratia.studies on YouTube, LinkedIn,
probably
Facebook, Instagram, no TikTok. I have TikTok, but I never post anything on it. I thought I was going to. I just can't get into it.
Yeah.
I
understand.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm old.
Maybe, who knows?
I'm 45. I'll be 46. I don't know. TikTok, is that for me?
You look great.
I don't know. Maybe I should start doing some dancing. Donnie, my instructor, he loves doing TikTok dances.
Yeah.
So he hasn't done one in a while, so I'm looking for one to come out. So
there you go. This is your debut.
Yes, a black belt in jiu-jitsu doing TikTok dances. I mean, who can resist, right?
Absolutely. That'd be amazing. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
So let us know whenever you're going to do your next training session for women for self-defense, because I would love to help promote that and get more people involved in that. I think it's very needed, especially knowing that you're teaching stuff like how to use a pen or the corner of a phone, a water bottle, things like that. I mean, that's very practical. It doesn't take an extra purchase or extra investment in anything special. You don't have to go out and buy a gun or a knife. You have stuff in your purse, or in your person if you're a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you carry a purse, I mean, it's fine too, but I mean, you got stuff on your person, that you can use as a weapon, right?
Yeah.
So that and grappling and all that type of stuff together, I mean, there's so many avenues to protect yourself. There's so many things that you can use. There's so many options. So we'll keep in touch with you and find out when you're going to do that, and we'll promote that for you as well.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having me on. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We got to do it again for sure.
Yeah.
So I was going to tell you this also. So TXBBS, where I train jiu-jitsu, Professor Selena Bador, she's a black belt. She is teaching a women's self-defense class. Well, it's not women's self, it's women's jiu-jitsu. Women's only jiu-jitsu. I'm sorry. She does a lot of women's self-defense classes. Also, she just finished one up here recently, but we're starting a women's only jiu-jitsu class, right? Okay. So this is a preview. This is trying to gauge interest for women wanting to, because I hear it all the time, I want to do jiu-jitsu, but I don't want to roll with men. I don't want to train with men, right? So she's putting together this is a preview class. This is an hour class on July 31st from 6 to 7. It's Professor Selena Bador, black belt in jiu-jitsu. Amazing.
Okay.
Right? She's really good. So all you listeners out there, if you're a lady, sign up for this class. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
If you're interested, sign up. It's a free preview. Come check it out. It's amazing.
I think I'll be there.
Yeah. But July 31st, I mean, come check it out. I mean, it's going to be amazing. And if we get enough people to show up and participate, this is going to be an ongoing thing. So there's no more hesitation. There's no more boundaries to women training jiu-jitsu. There's actually going to be a class that is women only. For training jiu-jitsu.
Perfect.
So
that's awesome.
You got to feel safe.
Yeah.
And this is a safe place to do it. Selena's super safe. She's very skilled, and she knows she has the right tactics to teach women.
Perfect.
And so if you pair that with what you're doing, I mean, it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to do everything we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down. Sorry I had some technical difficulties.
Oh.
This will be coming out in a couple days. I'll get some editing done. So I'm going to edit a little bit more than usual on this one. But I really appreciate you. Love you like a sister. You're amazing.
Love you too, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was really great. Had a lot of fun. All right, that's it for today. Old Gorilla out.